I thought after I changed, things would feel lighter. I believed I was finally doing what was right for me. I expected a quiet sense of relief to follow. I stopped trying to fix everything around me. I learned to stay present in small, ordinary moments. I no longer pushed things the way I used to. But something unexpected began to surface. It didn't come with noise or urgency, just a quiet feeling I couldn't quite name. I still felt afraid in ways I didn't expect. Afraid of getting it wrong again. Afraid that maybe this still wasn't enough. And for the first time, I didn't know what to do with that feeling. I couldn't fix it the way I usually would. So I quietly wondered if I should just let it stay. My name is Clara. I'm a mother who is learning, not to be perfect, but to be more aware. Some days, that feels like starting over from the beginning. A few days after I began to change, the house felt quieter. I stopped trying to fix everything all at once. The silence didn't feel heavy anymore. My child started sitting closer to me. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just shared the same quiet space. I let those moments happen without rushing them. I didn't feel the need to guide or correct. It felt unfamiliar, but lighter. From the outside, everything seemed better. Warmer, more natural than before, like something had finally settled into place. But inside me, something still felt unfinished. It stayed quietly in the background. I couldn't quite name it. As things became quieter, my thoughts grew louder. I started noticing things I used to avoid. Not all of them felt easy to face. Because beneath all these changes, one thing remained. It didn't disappear when I slowed down. It stayed quietly with me, fear. I keep wondering if I'm doing this the right way. The silence I chose sometimes feels uncertain. I question whether I've gone too far in stepping back. Part of me thinks I should be doing more, being more present in ways that are visible, showing effort that others might recognize. I notice other mothers who seem so sure. They move with clarity I don't always feel. It makes me pause and observe from a distance. Without realizing it, I start comparing. It happens quietly, almost automatically. One thought leads to another. I ask myself if I'm really helping my child, or if I'm just choosing what feels easier for me now. The question lingers longer than I expect. The fear isn't loud. It doesn't interrupt my day, but it stays quietly in the background. It feels like a quiet voice inside me, always asking the same simple question. Is this enough? I don't have a clear answer yet, and maybe no one truly does. That uncertainty is what makes it feel heavy sometimes. That night, something felt slightly different. My child sat on the floor, quietly focused on a small toy. There was a distance I couldn't quite explain. I watched without saying anything. That familiar urge slowly returned. The need to step in and make things better. My thoughts began to fill the silence. Maybe I should ask something. Maybe I should help before it's too late. I almost stood up without thinking. My body remembered the old pattern. Taking over felt easier than waiting. But I stopped in the middle of it. Not because I was sure, just because something felt uncertain. I stayed where I was. The discomfort didn't go away. My mind kept offering reasons to act. This didn't feel like calm. It didn't feel like peace either. It felt like sitting inside uncertainty. And then I noticed something new. Change doesn't remove fear completely. Sometimes it introduces a different kind. I used to think fear was something to fix, like a problem waiting for a solution, something I needed to overcome quickly. But this time felt different. There was nothing clear to solve, no simple way to make it go away, so I stayed with it. I let the feeling be there, without trying to push it away. And slowly, something shifted. Not outside, but inside me. A quiet understanding began to form. This fear wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a sign that I failed. It meant that I cared deeply. I realized I don't need certainty to be present. I don't need perfection to be enough. That felt new to me. Maybe being a mother isn't about never feeling afraid. Maybe it's about staying anyway, even when fear is still there. So I stayed, right there in that moment, not knowing everything, but still choosing to be there. I began trying something different again. Not to remove the fear, but to walk alongside it. It felt unfamiliar, but also quieter. When the thoughts came back, I didn't rush to respond. I let them pass through without holding on. I simply noticed them. When my child stayed quiet, I stayed close. I didn't fill the space with questions. I just shared the silence. I didn't always know what to say, and I began to accept that. The silence didn't feel as heavy anymore. Sometimes I just placed my hand gently on their shoulder. Sometimes I only smiled. It felt enough in a quiet way. Slowly, something began to shift. Not outside, where things looked the same, but inside, where it felt different. I no longer felt the rush to fix everything. I didn't chase certainty the way I used to. There was more space to breathe. It wasn't because everything became clear, but because I stopped resisting what I couldn't control, and that felt lighter. For a long time, I thought fear meant something was wrong. It felt like a signal that I needed to fix things quickly. I didn't question that belief before. Now I see it differently. Fear doesn't always mean something is broken. Sometimes it simply means I'm in the middle of something new. It can be part of learning. It can come from caring deeply. It can even be part of being a mother. I don't need to make it disappear, I just need to not let it lead me. That is what has changed. I still feel afraid sometimes, but I don't stop because of it anymore. I stay present, even when it's uncomfortable. That presence turns out to matter more than certainty. It feels stronger than having the right answer. In quiet ways, it holds everything together. My child doesn't need me to always be sure. They need me to stay, even when I don't have all the answers. And somehow, that is enough. More than I used to believe. It feels quiet, but complete. I'm beginning to see that change doesn't always make things lighter. Sometimes it opens parts of me I didn't notice before, and those parts feel quieter, but deeper. I no longer feel the need to push fear away. It can sit beside me without needing to disappear. Somehow, that feels more honest. There are still moments when I don't feel sure, but I don't stop myself from showing up anymore. I stay, even in the uncertainty. I used to think certainty was what held everything together, but now I notice it's something simpler. Just being here, again and again. I still question myself sometimes, wondering if what I give is enough. That question doesn't fully go away, but I'm starting to understand something new. Maybe enough isn't about feeling sure. Maybe it's about staying. I keep trying in small ways, learning without rushing myself, letting things grow at their own pace. And maybe this is what enough really looks like. Not perfect, not certain, just present, in a way that feels real. That night, I sat beside my child again. The room was quiet, and nothing needed to be said. For once, I didn't feel the urge to fix the moment. The fear was still there, just not as loud. It no longer filled the space between us. It stayed somewhere in the background, like a distant noise. I stayed there, without trying to become a better version of myself. I didn't need to say the right thing. Being present felt enough. And for the first time, I felt something settle inside me. Not excitement, not relief, just a quiet sense of peace. It stayed without needing a reason. Not because everything became certain, but because I stopped waiting for certainty. Slowly, I began to trust that being there was already enough.